My guest on today's episode is Tyrone Jackson. And guys, I don't know why it took me this long to have such a simple epiphany, but if you want to become a household name, you should look to the places where the most household names are being created, and that's social media. So I have done a lot of speaking to people across all kinds of different places, but I think that Tyrone is among the first people I've spoken to who has created everything that he has through being incredibly compelling and hardworking on Instagram. I was scrolling reels, just seeing what worked, trying to emulate it, trying to figure it out for myself. And I stumbled across one of his videos and I stopped and watched. Listen, this video wasn't even meant for me. It was meant for kids. He is an author of 2 children's books that teach young kids about financial literacy. His content is so captivating that even when you're not necessarily his target market, you're compelled to stop and listen to his take on finances, on literacy, and the state of parenting. We talk about the reel that got me into his work late in the episode, so definitely stay around and listen for that. But this guy, if you want to know how to become a household name, if you want to know how to sell books, if you want to know how to find new readers, if you want to learn how to build an audience, this is an incredibly practical episode to listen to gather some great information. Follow what he's doing because success leaves clues, and he's having a ton of success. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Tyrone Jackson. And I promise you, a lot more of these episodes are coming. I'm already dropping into a bunch of people's DMs who I'm seeing do amazing things and asking if I can have them on the podcast. Who better to teach us this blueprint than people who are already doing it on social media? So stick around for a lot of more great interviews. They're going to really center around how to create great content on Instagram, TikTok, and elsewhere that really, really make a difference.
I had no aspirations of being an author, much less a children's book author. And about 15, 16 years ago, when I was working in corporate sales, my son asked me a question that would change my life. And he simply said, "Dad, can we open up a lemonade stand?" He made $50 in 3 hours selling lemonade. He said, "Dad, what am I going to do with the $50? And I said, I didn't know. So I went to my local bookstore to try to find a book to teach my son about what to do with his $50. I couldn't find one, so I wrote one. That's kind of the short
That's
version.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that book, I've sold about 250,000 copies of that book independently.
That's incredible. And we're going to dive into that because that is like every author's dream. And I love and also hate that it wasn't even necessarily your intention to go out there and write a book, and you've had success that a lot of people dream of. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love to expand on that and inspire other people to find whatever purpose they have inside themselves, even if it's not fully cultivated or realized. But definitely like digging into that.
So do you feel like, is it the message itself that spoke to a niche in the market that helped it to take off?
I think it's a few things. I think one, yes, absolutely the message, especially in this culture of financial illiteracy, to have a book that teaches kids about finance and entrepreneurship. I think the component of the lack of diversity within children's books, that 80% of all children's books either feature a Caucasian character or an animal. And so only 20% are left up to, people of color. I think that is part of the reason why these books have been as successful as they are. Also, in part, that this particular character, although is a Black character, it's not a book written for Black children. It's a book written for children. Like there's no reference to anything stereotypical about this character. He's just a kid that's growing up, that's financially savvy, that wants to be successful. And I think a big part of my quote unquote success has just been my relentless marketing, promoting, and growth in trying to be the best author I can and trying to build a sense of community around this book and message.
Yeah. I recently had Darius and Carmen Britt on the podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and right now my brain is not pulling their name, but they're all about financial freedom. And so they've leaned really hard into the space with their YouTube channel of discussing using whole life insurance as a storage vessel for your money, and all of the benefits around that. I love them. They taught me so much about money. They were two of the people early on in my development who got me started down the right pathway with money. And because I became so enamored with that, I fell in love with money. I'm curious, I didn't really expect to go here with you, but I have three young boys. And one of the things that I've tried to do is just really simple financial lessons. Like I will tell them, if you mow a lawn, I want you to set aside a percentage of that money in savings so that you can do something greater with it over time or to invest it. I even offered my boys, if you will invest some of I will match anything that you invest up to a certain amount to try to get them excited about it. None of them have taken me up on it so far. I mean, we're still in the marshmallow test where they're like, I want candy. I want skins for Fortnite or whatever. What kind of things could I do better to get them more engaged? What have you seen through interacting with this community a lot? Because I guarantee you've got tons of wisdom for kids to get them excited.
I think the most valuable thing has come from my most recent book titled Make Your Own Money, to give kids permission to earn their own money, to create their own business so that they can understand, exactly what it takes to be able to make something out of nothing, whether the idea is a lemonade stand or bracelets like I'm wearing now, or mowing lawns, or even just allowance and chores, for them to be able to cultivate their own idea, bring it to life, earn money, and then dream and say, like, you know what, wow, like I never thought I could start a business as a kid cleaning sneakers or making bracelets or braiding hair or tutoring. And then once you get that the money from it, whatever success they have from it, be it $5 or $500, that the discovery of now what? Like what now that I have this money, what do I do? What's the responsible thing to do with it? I know I want to spend some, and I deserve to spend some, but figuring out this level of responsibility that it takes for me to invest, save, donate, and learning what that means. And I'm really proud that my book does a great job in assisting kids and giving them some direction on what to do with it. So I think the most valuable thing that we can do for kids with money is give them permission to dream about what they would do. We ask kids all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? My question I like to ask is, what would you like to do now? What would you like to do right now? If you could create a business, and then let's go create that business. And I think that gives kids permission to, like, wow, I could do that now. I'm not an adult, but that's okay that you're not an adult. You're a person with an idea and drive and ambition. I'm willing to help you and foster that idea and ambition for you to create a business. So, like, let's go.
I've got two things that this sparks for me. And so I'm going to say them both now, just so I hopefully don't forget one of them. But I had my middle son was playing ball out in the backyard. We lived in this ranch house, and it had a giant, I'm talking like I'm 6'4", and it was taller than me, window in the back, and like much wider than my span of my arms. And he threw a ball in it. It broke. It was carelessness, like it should not have happened. I got madder than I wanted to, and I tried to communicate to him, do you know how much this is going to cost me? And I really wanted to tie it into the money, because they have this horrible habit of being reckless with their things, their toys. Like they're destructive. They're very aggressive. And for whatever reason, I've always been, probably my upbringing, but I'm careful with things. I take really good care of my stuff. And so it sparked something in me. What I've noticed is that kids don't have a sense of value. And that's something that's always been curious for me. So I guess, I was going to state both things, and then I told the story. What have you noticed about that sense of value? How do you create an internal sense of value for kids? And is that actually part of the discussion that you're concerned with?
Sure. I think establishing value is a matter of having skin in the game. Like, like it's easy to spend dad's money. It's easy to
Yeah.
spend mom's money. But
Yeah.
when it's my money, wait a minute, like that organic apple costs twice as much as the regular apple, or,
Right.
like that Fortnite game, I'm sorry, is how much of my allowance that I worked 3 weeks for?
Right.
Like when and like, I think that's when like having this sense of entrepreneurship and earning your own money matters, because that's when the value comes into place. It's easy to spend somebody else's money. You're a lot more calculating when it comes to your own. And when you become old enough and self-reliant enough and dependent enough to be able to earn your own money, which I think kids can do as early as 5 and 6 years old, like then you're a lot more cautious and accountable for the money that is spent.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it matters. I think it also matters to have them contribute within the home. Like show your kids how much the electricity bill is. Let the
Hmm.
kids know like how much it costs for groceries in the house, especially when they're earning their own money and then they see the vastness. Wait, it costs $200,
Yeah.
every time you go to the supermarket to feed our family? Like, you know how much lemonade I have to sell to make $200? Like,
Right.
it puts things in perspective for kids. And I don't think
I
kids
love
are too
this.
young to be able to have that sense of understanding. They are such sponges and will
Yeah.
literally absorb whatever it is that we give them. And I think the biggest and most important thing that we can do to our children is talk up to them. We should
Yeah.
not talk down to their level. We should let them speak up to ours. And
I
that's
love it.
by engaging with them in a way that's respectful, that's honorable, and that, it's a lot easier to teach a 5-year-old how to play piano than a 25-year-old how to play piano.
Yeah.
So like if we have that same mentality of respecting kids that they can learn and absorb, at a really young age, then I think we've got a great opportunity for them to understand value and responsibility.
That's a phenomenal message. I'm really glad too, because it did piggyback onto the next question, which is um, I'm going to make some base assumptions that may turn out to be untrue, but I do know in the world of having a successful social media presence and the kind of numbers of books that you've sold, your gauge for what is a lot of money has probably changed. So that's my base assumption. I remember when it happened for me, I bought my first rental house and, going through that process and then starting to realize I used to think of $1,000 as a lot of money. And then there
Sure.
was a point where it was sort of like $1,000 is the cost of doing business here. And even though I've stepped away from some of the real estate stuff that I did, I still have a totally different gauge for what's a lot of money now. $10,000 still feels like a lot of money to me, but it doesn't feel like a thing that's going to crush me. Whereas there was a time in my life where $10,000 was unfathomable. I'm imagining you've gone through that a little bit. Is that something, and then I want to pivot into the social media conversation, but is that something that you do try to engage with kids about? It's like, this is part of the value question still, but it's a different part of the value question, which is raising your expectations of what's possible. Let's go from
Mm.
what's minimum wage now, $15 in most places, or maybe more, to like you could make $10,000 a month. That's a really real possibility for a teenager because of the world we live in now.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's about perspective. I came from
Yeah.
the hood. I was on welfare for the majority of my childhood. So $10 seemed like a lot of money. If I
Yeah.
$5 seemed like a lot of money. A kid growing up in Beverly Hills, $10 is something they blow their nose with. Like it may
Right.
not. It's so I think a lot of it is about perspective and meeting kids where they are and letting kids figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't I don't want I don't want my ideals of what a lot of money is to be
Sure.
relevant to what a child or anyone for
Of
that matter
course.
thinks a lot of money is. I think it's all about perspective and meeting kids where they are. With that being said, I think it's essential to be able to give kids a pathway of growth. And that, yes, $10 for a 5-year-old is a lot of money. But once you give them the permission to earn their own money, once you instill what values are and how to be more responsible, then I think it allows the child themselves to say, yeah, wow, $10 doesn't get me as much as I think it does. So let me grow my business or my mindset more
Yeah.
to evolve into, taking my $10 mindset to $100 mindset, to $1,000, $10,000, $1 million mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's essential, is for you to give the kids the ammunition, or rather the information, and let them determine how best to use it
Mm.
for their life and their lifestyle.
Absolutely. One last question here.
Yeah,
So
sure.
Robert Kiyosaki is well known for the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and he talks about the difference between getting a job and getting assets. And I don't remember the exact name of his game, but the idea of like you compile assets because assets have value and they're not controlled by the fluctuating of the markets. Is that something that you feel tied to one way or another? Do you talk about trying to transition some of that money into an asset, or do you view the making of money and the understanding and the stewardship of money as adequate to prepare kids?
Yeah, I think I really, in my 2 books that I've written about financial literacy and entrepreneurship, try to really stick with the basics and
Yeah.
foundations of earning it, saving, spending it. I don't divulge into assets and real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely a little bit of investing, but in a very simplistic way of just introducing kids to what's a stock, what's a
Yeah.
bond, what's the stock market, what's NASDAQ and stuff like that. But I don't. The topic of money for kids, any kid for that matter, can often be a uncomfortable subject.
Yeah.
In part because there's naivete, there's ignorance, there's just a lot of components, and I don't want to overwhelm them. I think my job is to kind of introduce and to have a almost birds and the bees like conversation with kids, not to go too far and too deep into the woods, but just enough to where, okay, where do I learn more now? Like, I have these 2 books to help me learn the basics. Who's the author? Maybe it is Robert Kiyosaki. Maybe it, is someone else that will get me to that next level. I think my role is to introduce. It's someone else will take the baton. And maybe eventually I'll get there and write something a little bit more past the elementary stage, but I'm not quite there yet.
I love what you're doing, and I think a lot about. So one of the guys that I admire most in kind of like the influencer attention world is Gary Vee.
Sure.
I assume you're familiar with him. He's
That's my
doing V
dog.
Friends
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
him so much. And like him going in the direction of reaching out to children with his new children's book and his idea of creating animated characters that can speak principles into children. Everything that you've said is indicative of this, but they're most movable when they're young. They're most malleable, and so you're doing, I think, the most good by focusing your attention right there. It's an amazing thing.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that. Yeah, and I love Gary Vee too. I literally not only listen to him every single day, but I talk to my girlfriend on a regular basis about, well, Gary said this today, or I learned this from Gary today. So Gary is a fixture in my household.
Yeah.
Minus the
It's
profanity,
the same here.
too much. Yeah.
It's the same here, actually. My wife's like, "Oh, Gary Vee again." I'm like, "Yeah, he just has a really good perspective on life." And
100.
I think there's so many people who do have a great thing. What I think is special about him is that he seems to have a very holistic view. So it's not like I go to him for like one thing and somebody else. It's like a whole package. So I want to shift over now and talk, because I found you through Instagram. And it's been a long time that I've paid attention to Instagram, probably a little differently than your average person. Whereas I'm looking for who does this really well and what are they doing? So I've studied your reels. I've taken some time to like think about what you're doing and how you're creating. But I still cannot distill it down and say, like, these are the components of when you create a reel. They're just popping. They pop, they're successful, they're lively, they're energetic, they're teaching. And there's no doubt in my mind that you have used your social media presence and your savvy and your expertise to sell books and to get your message out to people. And it's an area where for all the study I've done, I still feel very blind. And so I'd love for you to just talk about some of the basics of how did you get into creating on social media, on Instagram, anywhere else that you are, and what are the kind of things that you're doing? I'm going to have to ask questions as you talk and more questions become apparent to me.
For sure. And you know what? I'll kind of give you my origin story behind it. I'd gotten involved with Facebook pretty much since its origin, always use it in a personal sense. Facebook, I like to think, is a much more community driven platform. It's for your friends, it's for your family, it's for your immediate, environment and community. Instagram, Twitter, now X, maybe even Pinterest, and maybe even TikTok to agree, are maybe for people you don't know, people for communities that you're trying to cultivate.
Yeah.
So when I was introduced to the world of Instagram, I immediately used it as a platform to be able to spread my message, to be able to promote my books. And some of my earlier Instagram posts were very primitive, as obviously, that for anyway, everything is primitive at first. I tried whatever was trending, whatever dance stuff. I think the most important thing was one authenticity. I never felt like I was doing anything that was against of who I am. I've always been joyful. I've always had a great sense of humor. I've always tried to be, and while simultaneously educating and empowering. And I took all those things and just tried my best to just have my message while simultaneously having fun. But you talk about Gary Vee, and I think one of the main things that I've learned from him and that I admire about him, and one of the reasons why I trust him, is that he is so giving of his information. There's no catalog to buy. There's no four-step program that he wants you to be a part of. He seems to just kind of give from his heart and empower young people, or anyone for that matter, really, just to be the best versions of themselves and how to grow and how to utilize social media as a way to accelerate your business or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so I'm trying to do the same thing, especially within the past year or two. I've really tried to learn and emphasize my why. And my predominant why is to empower young people to use books as a tool to better themselves and their lifestyle. Yeah. And with that being kind of the overall message, like what are the little branches off of that tree that I can give to parents, give to educators, give to teachers, to be able to learn what I think I've experienced in my engagement with hundreds of thousands of children across the country within my authorship, how to inspire them to read, why we need to give them more independence. Like, the things that I've learned as a father, the things I've learned as an author, the things I've learned as an advocate, and gift those to the viewer. And I think that gift, which I've learned from Gary, to give, jab, 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 hook, is to be able to give, ask. And the more that I give, for example, one of the past couple of weeks, I've been doing these read or else reels where I'm giving information about illiteracy and how it impacts our culture, but also tips that parents can use to empower their kids to read more. And in doing so, I've gotten more orders in the past couple of weeks than I did all last month, just by giving more information about what parents can do to inspire their kids to read, or just to make them more aware of illiteracy and how it impacts our culture in micro and macro ways. And so it's essential for me to give as much as I can in as jovial way that I can, so that people are empowered and in turn want to spread the message and perhaps support.
Yeah. So you're looking at the subject matter and you're asking yourself, what inside of this subject matter can I speak to and have some authority on, so that I'm able to give value right here in the reel?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I actually have not bought any of Gary's books. I've borrowed them from my library. And so I don't know that I've ever spent $1 from Gary. I've read all of his work, but it's all been through my library. I think that there's this part of me that's still having a disconnect, and I don't know that we're going to resolve it today, but I think you're going to be able to speak to it a little bit. The pressing question for me is, as a novelist, the creative thing that I'm putting out there is a story. It's an entertainment. It's a film for your mind, I guess, is the way I think of it. And the entertainment industry has really leaned heavily on previews, and they'll pair a preview with a movie that you're going to go see, and you go see the movie, and then you see a preview for another movie, and you're like, ooh, I want to see that, and you grab it. there's this space for artists, for musicians, for fiction writers, uh, all of that space where it's like, what do I create that doesn't create a secondary thing that instead still ultimately points back toward the thing? And how do I not feel slimy like I am always trying to get you to buy my book? I still don't understand it as much as, I mean, I've been doing the show for a little over 3 years now, and I still don't have the answer to this. It's pretty wild to me. But I think that that question is the unlock for how to run successful social media like you are, is that you clearly don't feel that every reel has to sell a book. You feel like every reel has
No,
to
not at
give
all.
something.
Yes, 100%. I think that's the secret sauce. I think that if you can give micro pieces of yourself, then hopefully in turn you will receive macro pieces from your people who follow you.
Yeah.
And so whether it's in views and likes, shares, or purchases, like because all of those things matter. So it is 100% a fine line, but I think it's a matter of figuring out how best you can give, how best you can be of service. And when you do that, I think the people that we follow the most are the people who inspire us the most, who gift us something who how they serve us in a way. And then you want to continue to support those people. You want to be a part of that nucleus of inspiration. When you read a good book or see a great movie or find its director that kind of speaks your language, you want to know more about them. You want to follow that,
Yeah.
follow that the actor, director. You want to experience all of their catalog. And then when they're kind enough and generous enough, very Gary Vee like, to be able to give you bits and pieces and kind of let you in, like
Mm-hmm.
that's where that's where the secret sauce is. That's where you create community. That's where you create a following. That's where you create a
Yeah.
community. And so I think it's important to be able to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to expose as much as you can, as much as you're willing to expose about who you are, what you stand for, what your life and family is like, and how those can be of service and benefit to others. And I
Yeah.
think when you do that, that's where the sense of community, fellowship, and stewardship come into play.
Mm. So I've been, in fact, I mention him on almost every episode. I've been a fan of Stephen King for a long time. I love his work. He is very active on X at this point, and he's deeply, deeply political. For me,
Yeah,
he's gotten to the point where he's so political that I'm having a difficulty connecting with him anymore,
I get
and
it. Yeah.
it's kind of been bleeding into his books as well. But the question I'm getting at with it is that I am going to assume this is true, that he has gathered new followers to himself and new people who really love what he's doing because they resonate with his message. I'm
For sure.
curious for you, do you ever have moments where you recognize I'm doing something right now that is potentially polarizing, but I know that it's the right thing for my audience? Because you're speaking to children, I'm assuming that you probably don't have of this going on, but are there moments where like this could be possibly touchy, or do you avoid that?
No, I do my best not to avoid it, but to backtrack, I have to admit, one, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I've probably read two-thirds of his
Love
books,
it.
and I happen to be reading.
Yeah.
I'm about 30 pages into Mr. Mercedes right now. So
Oh,
so
great
that's
book.
one of
Yes.
two books that I'm reading right now. Just happens to be a Stephen King book.
Nice.
I think no matter what you do, nor who you do it for, nor how much you give sincerely for the benefit of others, there are always going to be people to criticize. There are always going
Yeah.
to be people who always, it doesn't matter if you're handing out $100 bills to homeless people in the
Right.
middle of the city, someone is going to be, aggravated and express that level of aggravation by it.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a thick skin. I think you have to really believe in who you are and what it is that you're doing is just, and learn, but not to be swayed. Like
Mm.
I'll be open minded. I've said statistics that people have questioned, the statistic that people have debated,
Mm.
and I'll one do my best to back it up with fact, and then also say that these are also my truths. Like and my
Yeah.
truth doesn't have to align with your truth. You for being right now a left-wing Republican and a right-wing Democrat. I mean, you couldn't have two more polar. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You believe what you
Right.
believe. My job isn't to negate your views or perspective.
Right.
It's to respect it as long as it respects me, and then stay strong to my beliefs, but to always be open-minded enough to see the other person's point of view, and hopefully that happens in kind. But if it doesn't, you stay strong in your beliefs. Let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
I'm happy to challenge anybody's views or perspective. With that being said, there are also times where I choose not to engage. There are sometimes
Sure.
like I allow my social media life to be just that, and not have it integrate into who I am as a person to ruin my day, or to
Hmm.
make me pissed off or angry. Like, you know what? Like, I'll if they're being disrespectful or rude or crass, or if they really just go against what it is that I'm saying, I'll just block them and move on. But I
Hmm.
rarely, if ever, engage with anyone who's disrespectful,
Yeah.
or is just so far to the right of the direction that I'm going. Their job is often to antagonize and to debate and to like go
Yeah.
back and forth. I'm not going to play that game.
Yeah. I had a somewhat incredible moment. I think on the whole, I still appreciate my intentions. I think I lost my emotional cool, but there's an author named Larry Correa. I had put out a tweet that just said, and it was still Twitter at that point, that said, if you write books and your only purpose is to entertain, you're failing as a writer. Which I actually, it's funny, even thinking now and saying it to you, I still don't think there's anything wrong with that statement, because I feel like our job as artists is to educate and to impart like really important lessons. And we don't have to be preachy about it, but our job is to try to reveal the world in a deeper way so that we can have this experience. And he got real mad about it and posted a series of tweets back at me, replies back at me that were deeply disrespectful, and so I like
Mm.
doubled down. I've never done it since, and I will never do it again. But I really went back hard after him until he finally blocked me, and I was like, I feel like I won that, and it was stupid. But it's the only time I've let social media get me. I hear what you mean about a thick skin, because people do get really angry about things. Early in my Twitter career, I posted about audiobooks, and I said, "Do you consider?" It was a question. Do you consider audiobooks reading? And it got seen by millions of people, had a ton of
Mm.
interaction, and I was being called an ableist for even suggesting that it wasn't reading. And I was like, this is a question. I just asked a
Yeah,
question,
yeah, yeah.
and people
Right, right,
assumed they knew what I meant. So yeah,
right,
people
right.
will get really on fire about things. So I want to get a little bit more granular now with you. Is as much as you're able to say, how much of your success selling your book has been a direct result of uh, social media? How much other types of things are you doing to get attention for your book? Talk to me a little bit about those things in a more detailed way.
I would say directly or indirectly, social media is responsible for 80% of my sales,
Wow.
and it kind of has to be when you're an indie author, and
Yep.
you're basically right now talking to the author, to the publicist, to the manager, to the booking agent. I mean, for the most part,
Yes.
you're speaking to all of those guys right now, and so you have to, and it's one of the reasons why I utilize my platform with the regularity that I do, with the emotional attachment that I do, because one, it works for me, and it's assisted me to create in a great community that really honors and respects my voice. And I am greatly appreciative for that. It also has allowed me, in addition to selling books and being an advocate, it also has allowed me to have numerous speaking engagements
Mm.
around the country. One of my favorite ones is with the city of Jacksonville, Florida, who a number of years ago reached out to me and said they wanted me to come and speak for a particular function. And when I got there, they had dinner with me and told me I was their third choice. They said
Oh,
their first choice was LeVar
that
Burton.
feels great.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh my gosh, like, wait, like, who wants to hear that you're the third choice? After they told me why, it was an honor. The first choice was LeVar Burton.
Oh,
The
wow.
second
Yeah.
choice was Amanda Gordon.
Uh,
And I was the third choice.
that's
I was
amazing.
the bronze to LeVar
Yeah.
Burton, arguably the most important and visible literary figure in the country, and
Yeah.
Amanda Gordon, who had given a speech, who is the poet laureate of the country right now, and has
Yeah.
given speech at not only just the at the inauguration of Biden and just recently at the Democratic convention. I came third to them.
That's
That
amazing.
that that was amazing. When I asked them how did they find me, they said social media. And
Yeah.
so that's the space and honor that you have to give to this platform, which is the most important communicative platform on the planet, bar none, not close. 30
Yeah.
years, 50 years ago, it was newspaper ads. 30 years ago, it was television commercials and radio spots. Today, it's social media. It's not even close. And if you're not utilizing that platform to be able to get across your message, business, whatever, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
easy. It's not an easy platform to
Right.
navigate. But like anything else, it's trial and error. It's figuring out what works. And once you do, run with it.
Yeah. Most everybody who's listening to this is not going to do anything different than they did yesterday after they finished
Probably.
listening.
Sure.
But for the people right now who are listening and they're piqued, they're interested, they're like, wait a second, what did he just say? Talk to me a little bit about your strategy. Or 80% of your book sales come through social media, give or take. And they've given you these opportunities to get bronze next to two unbelievably amazing literary figures and speak at a prestigious event. You've set yourself up incredibly well. What are the kind of strategies that you use? I know that we talked earlier about kind of content a little bit. Are you planning out? Do you block your time so that you're like, today is Monday and it's all social media and I'm going to get everything ready, record it, and then release it through the week? Or
Yep.
do you kind of fly by the seat of your pants? How do you approach this?
Well, first, I start off with the realistic sense that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, more than likely, you could, but more than likely, not going to make a post today that's going to generate 1 million views. That's probably not going to happen. That is the lottery. And although a reasonable lottery that many people win, but I go with the sense of I'm training for a marathon, and I'm going to
Yeah.
do my best to take baby steps to run a block, a mile, 5 miles, and then just keep learning more about this process and learning more about myself in the process. So the first step is to have realistic expectations and just
Yeah.
to know that your first post, maybe even your 100th post, may not generate the volume that it should. But if you work hard enough and more, or as important, to create a sense of community by engaging with like-minded people, again, giving of yourselves to these organizations and people, and like, how can I serve you? And maybe in turn, we can work with each other.
Yeah.
But like macro, like right now, yes, I probably do a post a day. I don't do them for the week. I don't have that mindset of do like 5 or 6 in a day
Right.
and then ration them out. My girlfriend will tell you I can't hold a post. Once I have it, especially if
Yeah.
it's really good, I can't hold it. It's gotta go.
Yeah.
So I really sit down every day, and I probably spend a good hour to an hour to an hour and a half from cultivating to mapping it out, and then executing, and then post production. It's a job. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. But it's allowed me, this job of social media has allowed me to sell over 300,000 copies of my books
Right.
independently, which is like, and I'm not saying this with ego, it's a tremendous feat. Like
Yeah.
it is extraordinary
Yes.
to be able, as an indie author of children's books, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I do a lot time every day, Monday through Monday, to create, to find my voice. And once I found, because like this one I said I did with my Read or Else platform, I only done for a couple of weeks, and it's a spinoff of something I was doing, these kind of car talks, and I did that for a few months, and then it evolved into this, and both are kind of working, but they're working because my message is still consistent, although the way that I deliver the message has changed a little bit,
Yeah.
and again, it's serving, it's giving more than I'm asking for.
Yeah. One of the challenges I have to assume is actually now parents are the buyers of books.
Yes,
Children are your audience. So
correct.
you've got a double filter. Talk to me a little bit about that because I think it could be really useful for fiction authors who are listening right now. Is like everybody's your audience, but readers are really your audience. So how do you
Yes.
create something that's compelling to kids and yet gets parents to engage?
Yeah, I think it's about educating. I know that children are not, nor should they be watching my posts. They're not allowed to watch my posts because you have to be under, what is it, 12, 14? I'm not even sure
Yeah,
what the age is for kids to be able to be. So I know it's their parents, it's their educators. So it's how can I provide them with content that inspires them or makes them think about, the life that they have as a parent, which is why my car talks, which were really very parental driven, like what tips have I learned as a parent and also as a author who's had the beautiful opportunity to engage with hundreds of thousands of children around the country. How can I take those bits of information, put them in a nice bite-sized chunk for a parent to take and go, oh wow, I never thought about that. Like one of my
yeah,
favorite ones was, instead of asking kids how was your day, which is they're just going to say
yeah,
fine. Like you come home from work, your wife or a significant other asks you, how was your day? Great. That's the wrong question.
yeah.
Like, what made you smile today? Like, what did you and your best friend do today? Like,
Mhm.
is there anything that made you feel weird today? Like, asking open-ended questions has like is a much better way to get actual engagement from your kids instead of just going, it was okay, it was fine.
Right.
And that bit of information went I think it's up to over close to 1 million views and
Yeah.
comments on that, just from that one simple question. And thousands of people have reached out to me, including today, and said that one question has changed my relationship with my
That's
kid.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
that's just that's part of the micro gift of giving on social media that make people go, I like this guy. Like, I
Yeah.
want to know more about this guy. And wait a minute, he creates books, and now he's telling me why books matter, the culture of books matter in my home. I want to support this guy. So,
Yeah.
like, for me, it's about how I can give back, not hit you over the head with buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Like, that's not going to work, or if it does, it's going to work for a really short period of time.
Yeah.
Again, Gary Vee, the genius, jab, 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 hook,
Yeah.
ask, or give, 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 ask. And in most cases, I don't have to ask. They just give,
Right.
kindly because I'm in turn giving.
Yeah. That reel that you speak of actually was a really great one for me too. That day as my kids are coming back from school, I'd just seen that reel, and I tried it out as well. So worked on me
And
too.
it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm really proud of, no, I have a degree in nothing, although I'm honored to say I have an honorary doctorate degree from my work. So you can call me Dr. Jackson if you want. But I've got a degree in nothing. My education has literally come hands-on. It's as a
Yeah.
parent, as an educator, so to speak. And so the advice I give is really just common sense.
Hmm.
There's no big medical, scientific, psychological epiphany that I've gotten from my degree at blah blah blah, because I have no degree in blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm just a dad that, like you,
Right.
who just wants better for their kids. And if there's a bit of information that you can provide to like help me as a parent, I'm going to be, and I've gotten hundreds of, like thousands of
Yeah.
them. I'm so grateful. And then if I can in turn use that to empower somebody else, we all win.
Right. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit more. You said something earlier about kind of the time allotment for a post, and you mentioned post production. It got me thinking about a couple of things. One is, are you using any special equipment when you're doing your reels? Have you like up leveled the kind of equipment you're using? Because you have better film quality than most people that I see. You have really good sound quality, and then with that question. What level is post production? How much is the actual reel itself versus the production, the post production?
Yeah, the post production is almost always cost you more time than
Yeah,
the actual creation of the reel. First of all, I use everything incredibly primitive. The only thing I'm using on my iPad, my iPhone, and my AirPods.
yeah,
That's pretty much it. I don't have a level of computer scientific knowledge. I'm just,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not my thing. I wish I was. I need to be more of an engineer with this and develop and use Final Cut Pro or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I need to learn those things. I just don't have that mentality. So I keep it really simple. And I think that
Yeah,
level of rawness is what's appreciated. That it's not overly produced. It's not this whole. It's just a dad trying to talk to another dad or mom about how to
yeah,
best. And I think when it's stripped down like that and more raw, I think it's appreciated more. My average reel, like I said, will cost me from conception to hitting post is
yeah,
about an hour. And I will say that on average, it's about 15 to 20 minutes of actual recording time with a number
yeah,
of different takes. And then post production is somewhere about 20 to 30 minutes. And then, like, even just what text are you going to put in the body of the post to,
yeah,
inspire people? So it's a job. There's no question and no
yeah.
denying it. But it is a necessary job if your
Yep.
objective is to grow, to reach the masses. There's no alternative. So find ways to, one, not make it a chore, to be as sincere as possible, like be as authentic. If you are introverted and you don't like speaking, that's fine. You never have to show your face on social media if you don't have to. You just have to be more creative in finding ways to showcase your mission and your work. It could be through your photography. It could be through
Yeah.
your prose. It could be through your, if you're a chef, maybe just the process of cooking. Maybe we just see your hands. But there's a way to be able to do it
Yeah.
without being a game show host, like
Right.
or Dancing with the Stars. You just have to utilize whatever strengths you have to be able to do it.
There's something really strange, and this has bugged me. I don't know what to do about it for a little while, but I write a weekly newsletter for my subscribers, and I grab subscribers in a variety of ways. But mostly they come through. They can get my free audiobooks when they buy the paperback. They can scan the QR code and then they can get the audio to go along with that. And so my list builds fairly well just doing that, among a couple of other things. But what I've noticed is I have good open rates on my newsletter. And so I know things are going well. I don't have unsubscribers. People continue to say subscribe to me. So I know that when I'm appearing in their inbox, they're enjoying me, but it doesn't move the needle. Like, it's not selling more books. And I'm always really curious, like, what's actually happening here? I know I'm giving freely, and I don't have the expectation I'm going to sell. I'm doing this because I'm going to write it anyways. And so now I'm going to share it with you because I was going to write this anyways. And I'm really curious why some things seem to translate. You're having a cool experience. Do you think that there are things that you've learned along the way that have helped you to get that second engagement? And let's stop there. But I have a bunch of questions just like this.
Yeah, one, I think is obnoxious consistency. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you have to be visible on this platform minimum once a day, preferably
yeah,
2 to 3 times a day. Yes, I know it is a chore, but it's often said, and Gary Vee says it all the time, everything you do is content. Everything you do is content. Whether
yeah,
it's having dinner, whether it's like, I won't say brushing your teeth or sitting on the toilet. Nobody wants to see that. But, like anything that's intriguing throughout your day is, and sometimes it can be what it is you're having for dinner. People say that all the time. Nobody wants to see what you're having for dinner. That's a lie. Yes, you do. Like, when
yeah,
if I said you can go see what Beyonce is having for dinner right now, would you want to know?
right,
Of
yeah,
course you would want to know. The question is, how do you build yourself to be relevant as Beyonce so that
yeah,
people are intrigued with who it is? And now that's going to the top of the moon. You can go
sure,
bring yourself down to earth somewhat. But, for the authors that you're intrigued by the most, you would want to know where they shop. You would want to
yeah,
know what they eat. The question is, how do you get that persona that make people interested in what you do? And again, I think a
yeah,
lot of it is just vulnerability of, like,
yeah,
showcasing the things you love, showcasing your family. Now, you do this whatever makes you comfortable, but
right,
I think that those things are really essential, to galvanizing and getting people of your followership. It's also making sure that you have a great product. Like,
yeah,
and I have no idea what products are like, but I have authors who reach out to me all the time, and they'll send me their books and, like, oh, my book's not selling, and their book is crap. I mean, that you
mm,
can tell that they had their cousin do the illustrations. They went to
yeah,
Staples and got it. Got it. Like,
yeah,
like, if you're not making the investment and taking your own product seriously, how do you think somebody else is going to take your product
Oh,
seriously? So you have to make the investment to make a good quality product that is
right.
worthy of being on any bookshelf anywhere in the country if you want to be taken seriously. Because if
Yeah.
you're not taking it seriously, definitely the consumer is not taking it
Right.
seriously.
I have said this so many times. It's a topic I have hammered on this podcast a lot, is if you self-publish a book and you don't spend any money on an editor and you don't spend any money on your cover and you don't spend any money on any of that stuff, do not expect to succeed,
That's
because you may
absolutely
you
right.
you may get a launch. Like, if you're really good, you may get a thousand books out there, but those thousand people are all going to be like, there was typos on the first page and like
Right.
yada yada yada. It's just
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
Sad.
I had a person who's somewhat famous reach out to me and said they wanted to write a book with me. And they said that they can get that book completed in 3 weeks. I said, I want
Wow.
nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with it. Like, if you're telling me that you're going to put out a chapter book in 3 weeks,
Yeah.
there's no way you can dedicate 3 weeks and come out with a premier product. The
Right.
world of authorship just doesn't work that way. It takes
Yeah.
time. Nothing great happens fast. And Gary says it all the time. The worst word in the world of entrepreneurship is fast. And
Yeah.
the moment that you tell me I'm going to get this out to you fast, I'm like, take your time.
Right.
Pace yourself. Like, it took me, my very first book, it took me a year to write a children's book with about 100 pages. It took me a year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it took me a year. It allowed me to savor it, to learn more, to create
Yeah.
more, to be a better author. Because if I'd put a 2-week time frame on this, it would have been crap. And like, so yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of went
Absolutely.
off on a tangent there, but forgive me.
No, I mean, it's so valuable, and I love the passion, because it's really important for people to know that. When you're posting on different channels, I will be honest, I have looked at you on Instagram. It's where I like to spend time, and so it's where I do my studying and all of that kind of stuff. But you're on TikTok, you're on X. How much are you adapting your message from place to place? Do you make big changes, small changes?
If I'm being really honest, I am on Instagram posting once to twice a day. I'm on there about an hour or two every day.
Okay.
LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, X, once a week tops. And
Okay.
and I should expand more, and that's to my detriment. But I have been consistent on those platforms, and they just haven't worked for me. And
Yeah.
so I've abandoned them. I still try to be relevant on them just for the sake of, but Instagram has been my bread and butter. It's been my ride or die. It's never let me down, or it's rarely let me down. And it's the platform that I enjoy the most. And so so that's the space that I work with. I have to also say one other thing, and this is for anyone who's listening who tries to search me, especially on TikTok. I have, and I'm sadly not exaggerating, thousands of fake accounts using my photos and likeness. If you go on TikTok right now and type in Ty Allan Jackson, you will see close to 100, and I am not making this up.
Why is this?
You get. Let me look at this face. Come on. I mean,
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, I couldn't help it. I think these scam artists are reaching out to a demographic of generally older, naive people, women who aren't very social media savvy. So they'll look for someone a little more seasoned. And utilize that as a platform to scam people. Like, sadly, when you get off, go to TikTok. If you have a TikTok account, type in Ty Allan Jackson, and sadly, you will see dozens, if not hundreds, of fake accounts with my name.
Well, congratulations.
So it's another reason why
I'm not a big enough deal that anyone would scam to beat me. So
yeah. I'll just,
insane,
like, I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah.
Like, these are all
gosh.
fake accounts, all using my photos and my likeness.
Crazy,
they're all
man.
fake. And that's just the first page. And then the second page.
Jeez.
And the third page. It's crazy. And that's just on TikTok. It's the same on every social media platform. So I've been reluctant to utilize other platforms because I'm verified on Instagram. It kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, sorry, I had to.
No, it's really important to know that. I mean, that's crazy. For me, it's aspirational at this point. I hope to have a big enough impact that people pretend to be me. That'd be great.
It's not the fun you think it is. I get reached out to by hundreds of people saying, some people even accusing me of being the scammer. So
Oh,
it's not,
geez.
it's
Yeah.
it's so much a hindrance knowing that your image is actually hurting people. And there's
Yeah.
very little that these social media platforms do about it. But
Yeah.
I digress.
So no worries. Let's we're coming up on an hour, and I don't want to take any more time than that. But I do want to ask you a little bit. When you're creating a post, there's the visual aspects, then there's the elements that are overlaid, like any kind of text that you want to use, or maybe you're going to use
Sure.
captions, those kind of things.
Yep.
And then there's the description of the reel that you're going to do. There's posts. There's carousels. How do you determine what you're going to do, and what are the ones that are working best for you? Do you think that if somebody wants to make a reel, they're going to get off of this podcast and they're like, I'm going to commit to make a reel today? What are the hit points that they should follow to do the very best for themselves?
One of the most important books I've ever read is by Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And the title of the book is The Success Principles. And one of the keys it said in there is success leaves clues. In other words, somebody has done exactly what you want to do and are successful from doing it. Follow the clues that they left behind and mimic them. I would just go to some of the reels, and there's only a billion of them that other people have done, and mimic them. Like, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Just do what other people are doing. Things are trending for a reason. They're trending because they're popular. Do the trend until you get creative enough to create your own trend. So I would say don't overthink the process. See what other people are doing, then put your own spin on it. It's as simple. The most recent post that I did was about a little girl who's crying until I showed her a reading nook, and then she laughs. And it's the most recent post. All I did was just steal that idea and just recycle it to fit my own mission. So don't overthink it. Do what other people are doing and learn from them until you can find your own voice and get your own footing. And then depending upon the type of reel, for me, it's mostly reels. It's 98% reels. I post very few pictures. I post very few carousels, stories and reels, because that's what's worked for me to galvanize people. And for you, if you're a photographer, it might just be, images. If you're a singer, it might be carousel. So it's the thing that works for you. And so the reels work for me. It's taken me in 2 years from 5,000 to almost 200,000 with no purchase. I've purchased none. I've done almost no ads, just almost 200,000 followers in about 2 years, just by hustling and finding my voice and connecting with people.
That's replying to a lot of stuff. You're going to be really active in replying to comments, liking what people are saying, engaging as much as possible. At this point, I imagine you're overwhelmed by the number of comments that you get, and it's probably not possible to necessarily engage with everybody. What level of significance? What level of significance would you put on trying to be present for those comments and that kind of thing?
Oh, it's 100% necessary. It's just not 100% possible, because there are posts that literally have thousands of people. But sometimes, I try to do it early and often. I try to, much to my girlfriend's dismay. I'm on there probably a lot more than I should. And, but then when I'm present, and I put it down and turn it off. But I try to every day, because it does matter, to engage and say thank you. And the thank you could just be a like. Sometimes it's a response. Sometimes it's a DM. But I do invest a time, effort, and energy in this platform because it's been so good to me, and it's been a worthy investment. And I think anybody who's willing to put forth the effort and creativity, you'll find that it will bear fruit for you as well.
Yeah, I love the ability to do something organically that's getting you so much. You've sold a living worth of books. 300,000 books in a time period is enough to make a living off of. I'm selling far fewer books than that, and I'm able to make a fairly decent living on the books that I'm selling. So I know you're doing well for yourself, and I think that's amazing that we right now have social media where you can not leave your neighborhood and have the ability to make a living as a significant author and have the impact and be mentioned in the same breath as LeVar Burton. So it's amazing that you gave me this time, Ty. I'm really grateful for you giving me an hour of your time. For people who want to find you, obviously Instagram is the place. Tell them your handle, and if there's anything else that you want to point them to, do that now.
Yeah, so predominantly it is Instagram and my website. I can be followed on other platforms, but honestly, I would say stay away from them because I've struggled in getting fake accounts off. You don't know who you're following. Instagram, because of my
Yeah.
verification, you know who it is that you're engaging with. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform. As an indie author, you 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 have to make sure that you're engaging as much as possible to be relevant as much as possible, and it's hard to do that
Yeah.
solely on your own. So when you have great creative people like you who are willing to create these platforms, I thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
want to
Thank you.
say in parting, not that you allowed me to, but I'm going to do it anyway,
No, please,
is
please
that
do.
as an author and as an advocate for promoting literacy, I think it is essential for us to do what I had stated earlier. Let's speak up to our children. Let's respect them and honor them for the wise vessels that they are. They are our most relevant teachers in most cases and teach us so many things about what's really, really important and what really, really matters. So take the time to get to know them better, to get to love them harder and appreciate them. So thank you.
Beautiful words to close on. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Becoming a household name won't happen overnight, but with your help, it can happen for me or for anyone you know who's on this journey. If you liked what you heard today, would you consider sharing this podcast with someone you know would love it too? Word of mouth is the single biggest difference maker for a dreamer's outcome. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.